improving the thermal performance of a house is to reduce the amount of leakage, air leakage, unwanted air escaping or unwanted air entering the house. So I'm in the kitchen and I look around at what are the opportunities for air to escape from this part of the house. So we've identified the gap under the door. Now I cast my eye around and I see these wall vents. Now these wall vents are part of the legacy of when houses were built. It was mandatory up to about 1980, 1982. That it was mandatory you had to have permanent open vents. And this was because historically houses had gas lights, but they also had unflued gas heaters. So the concern is that you do not want a build-up of carbon monoxide in a house. So the important thing is that the houses were designed to have permanent ventilation. Here we are in 2021 and we don't have gas lights, and this house does not have unflued gas heaters. So they are redundant and they are permanently leaking warm air in winter, and they're permanently allowing warm air to enter the house. So as far as improving the thermal performance of this house, low fruit, seal up the air vents. So how you fix them, there's a range of techniques. You can just use silicone and a bit of spatula to smooth it over, a bit of plaster. You could get some expandable foam. There's a few options. The next thing I'll look around and say, okay, where else are there drafts? And if I stand here and I look across to the front door, I almost need my sunglasses on because the amount of light that's coming through the bottom of that door is intense. And that's telling me there's a lot of airflow coming through the house. Ideally, you put a draft stopper on the bottom. But in the kitchen here, we've got LED lights. And LED lights are very efficient insofar as they use about 80%, between 60 and 80% less electricity than a halogen downlight. And many of the sins of the past are hidden in the ceiling. And I'm sure when we climb up there and have a look, it will tell us a story of why this place could actually function with greater efficiency. We'll get up there and we'll have a look in a moment. But as I cast my eye through the kitchen and the dining area, what I see, and it puts a smile to my face, is the pelmets. The pelmets, a relic of the past and very functional. They're functional for several reasons. They were in fashion at the time the house was built. They collect the dust up here, which means the dust doesn't settle on the curtains. But more importantly, and from an energy efficiency point of view, they play a very important role, particularly in winter, in reducing the amount of heat that is transferred from outside through the glass and into the living area. So when the curtains are drawn, the air trapped between the curtains and the window will stay there because the curtains are close to the ground or the floor and they're sealed at the top. If you have pelmets in your house, please keep them. Let's have a look at a different blind, and it's a Roman blind. There were no pelmets, but nor are they needed. The way that a Roman blind is connected to the wall is sealed in such a way that it stops that circulation that I described. So if you have an aversion to pelmets, this is a good way of getting around it and still have the benefits of stopping that circulation. Other features in this room, let's talk about the ceiling fan. Now the ceiling fan provides two services. It provides a benefit in summer by forcing air downwards onto the people in the room. And that air movement creates a cooling sensation. In winter, you reverse the direction of the fans because you don't want an airflow coming down onto the occupants in the room because that will have a chilling effect. What you want to do is you want to mix the hot air up there that's sitting up in the ceiling with the temperature and the air down here. And the way you do that is you draw the air from the floor up to the ceiling and circulate. So you don't have the wind chill factor, but you have the mixing of the hot air with the cool air. That's why you have the fans in reverse. And most fans have the capacity to have a winter and summer setting. Great efficiency gains are achieved by using fans in a house. Now, the other thing that is very obvious in this dwelling is how high the ceilings are. And what that means is in summer, when the air is heating up inside the living area, it accumulates from the ceiling down, but you've got more airspace and headspace. So the air is heated and it's up there, and it has less effect on the people in the room. In contrast with the more modern homes where the ceiling is lower, what it means is that layer of hot air that is accumulating during the day is closer to the occupants, and the feeling of discomfort and high temperatures result. So you can't retrofit and create high ceilings, but if you've got them, they're brilliant in summer. Like many things, there's two sides of the coin, and in winter, it's counterproductive because the heat, the artificial heat, is accumulated there, and it takes longer for that heat to get down to the residents. And that's why these fans are important in winter, in circulating that to reduce the adverse effect of having the high ceilings. But if you had a choice, you would, without a doubt, you would have high ceilings, because overall the benefit is significant. Across here, we've got a wood heater. Now, the wood heaters are very effective in heating, and having the back in here, you have it for safety reasons, but you also have it so that it heats up. So when the fire dies down overnight, you've still got some heat that has been radiated from here. So this is good design, and rely on the heat that's stored here to provide the longer ongoing benefits overnight. And with the blinds drawn, the pelmets, the air vents sealed, the draft stop on the bottom of the door, all of that will help retain much more of the heat overnight. So again, we're looking at where are the weak points in the house in terms of unwanted heat loss, heat gain. And exhaust fans, as we're looking through here, we can see that is a permanent opening, a permanent leak, and the exchange of heat in winter will be escaping constantly, 24/7, being sucked up through there and lost. And in summer, you will get some heat coming in through there. Now, to retrofit that, it's a relatively straightforward procedure, and you can put a device that sits on top of that fan inside the roof cavity that will seal that air draft. And when you turn the exhaust fan on, the flaps open and the air moves through. When you turn the fan off, the flaps seal. The other thing to give consideration is this is permanently open as well. And that one's going to be more difficult to retrofit because it's just passively allowing air to flow through. The other thing that's important in the bathroom is you don't want the accumulation of moisture, so having a window and a vent is important. The other thing to give consideration to is having the bathroom door so when it shuts, it seals. So that even if you don't seal that, you can isolate the cool or the unwanted heat from the rest of the living area. So the heat lamps are a very functional way of improving the comfort of your experience in the shower. Without a doubt, 275 watts per globe, they're churning up a lot of electricity. But if you're having a 4-minute shower, the amount of electricity you use by these in the scheme of a 24-hour cycle is not significant. So when I see these heat lamps, when I'm doing energy assessments, I don't fret. I say, so long as you remember to turn them off after your shower, the dent it has on your energy budget is quite insignificant. What's important though is when these, because they generate so much heat, it's important that there's airflow, otherwise the globes overheat and that's short of life. So unlike the exhaust fan that we looked at where we can seal, these ones typically you can't seal, so it means you have a permanent draft from the bathroom. So the way you address that is make sure you isolate the bathroom from the rest of the house. We've got a sliding door, which is invariably difficult to seal, but we can reduce the leakage by putting one of those brush seals on the bottom of the door that we talked about earlier. And that reduces the adverse impact of the permanent leakage that comes from these devices. But let's have a look at the other lights that are in the corner. Now these are downlights, and if you have a close look, they're halogen downlights. Now the halogen downlights were part of the first generation of downlights, and whilst they're very neat and compact, they get very hot, and they can get up to about 180 degrees. And it's also a fire risk if they're up close to the bulk insulation in the ceiling. So that is why the regulations require that there's about a 200mm gap around every halogen downlight. But having 200mm gaps for every downlight has a significant adverse impact on the effectiveness of your ceiling insulation. So the best thing that's happened in recent time is there been very efficient replacements of halogen downlights with LED lights. And more importantly, the most recent generation of LED downlights is you can actually put the insulation over the top. We can address this issue with the upgrade to LED downlights. A thing to be mindful of in terms of energy efficiency is the amount of energy that is embedded in heating the water for your shower. So if you can adopt water efficiency, you also reduce the amount of energy that you're consuming. So when I have a look here, and I look at this shower rose here, very effective, very comfortable, and uses a lot of water. You can get water efficient roses to replace that, and you'll reduce from around 10 to 12 litres per minute down to about 3 to 4. Now, sometimes, depending on the amount of pressure you've got, some of the very water efficient showers, you've got to do a little dance in there to get wet. So there's some biases against having the ultra water efficient shower roses, and it's a bit of personal preference. But you can go a long way from this very inefficient, and I'll show you a more efficient one that'll run at around 3 to 4 litres a minute, and still being effective. The thing to be mindful of is houses that have instantaneous gas hot water systems. Some of the older models do not function effectively when you put a very water efficient shower rose. So the ones that are around 2 to 3 litres can be problematic with some of the older instantaneous hot water systems. So it's worth cross-referencing and seeing whether the system will still operate at those low flows. The good thing is that there are programs around that can provide free changeovers for these. So if it doesn't fit with the very water efficient ones, you step up to the ones that are a little less efficient to get that critical flow through so that the instantaneous gas hot water heaters work.